So after pressing the top edge of our pocket 1/4 inch to the wrong side, we're going to stitch along here. But before we start sewing, we want to always check our sewing machine to make sure that we have threaded it correctly. So grab your scrap. We sometimes call these spiders just because they end up with lots of legs on the end of them. When we get to the end, we're going to stop with needle up, press our foot up, pull off to the left, cut our threads, and then we're going to check to make sure both the front and the back look pretty much the same. And we are ready to go. Now, I have seen lots of people try to stitch this from this side up. That will give you all kinds of problems. One of the best lessons I ever learned whenever I was trying to sew this little tiny thing like this and keep it from driving me crazy was to flip it over and stitch it from the right side. And we're going to stitch really close to the edge here. We want to make sure that we catch that little 1/4 of an inch. It's not very much, so we have to be really, really careful that we catch that 1/4 of an inch. And in order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to line up the edge of our fabric with that little center slit in the foot. Okay? The center slit in the foot. And I'm going to take my pin out because I don't want to stitch over that. I'm actually going to move in just a little bit from the edge. Now, the reason why we want to stitch this way is the feed dogs will actually help us keep that little flap turned under. When we stitch it this way, the feed dogs actually push on this, and they'll try to push it over, and then you'll have an uneven hem. So we want to not have that happen. So this is where I'm going to watch. Remember, always hang on to your threads for the first couple of stitches so you don't get caught in the hole. And then we're going to back stitch to the end. This is kind of a careful job, so you might want to go a little slower than normal to get it done, just because we want to make sure that it doesn't fall off the edge, but we are actually catching the whole side. So again, I always hold the threads when I'm going forward, just the first few stitches, and then I'm stitching right along that edge, and I'm watching right here. And go the speed that you are comfortable. Remember, I've been sewing for a long time, so I tend to go a little bit faster sometimes. Also, if I go really slow, it will take forever for you to watch me. All right, so I'm trying to keep that as straight as possible. Now, this is not going to show on the outside. It will affect how well it works if you don't keep it straight. But if it's a little wobbly, it's not going to be horrible. All right, so I'm to the end. I'm going to back stitch about 3 or 4 stitches. I'm going to stitch off the end, needle up, press your foot up. I'm going to clip my threads. Remember, always clip your threads short. And then I'm going to come back with my snips and get these other 2. And now let's see if Miss Jones did a good job. So it looks pretty straight on the top edge, but let's see how we did on the bottom edge. And I did pretty well. I'm about in the middle of the little flappy thing as we go along there. I didn't fall off of it. If I fall off of it, then I didn't catch the edge and it's going to come undone. So you do want to check both sides, make sure that's pretty much straight over here and that's pretty much straight on this side and that you caught the whole edge. I am going to press this at the ironing board. I'm not going to go back and forth real hard, but I am going to just kind of press this at the ironing board up and down, because if I made any kind of wiggles in this, wavers in it, as I was sewing, that's a time that I can get that taken care of before I do the next step of pinning.